Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and normally, it's about 5 p.m., I'd be gearing up to figure out what I would be doing for New Year's Eve. Bars would have permits to be open all night long, but that is certainly not the case around the country. I'm just kind of lucky that bars are even open, and there's some semblance of normalcy. Now, obviously, the national hotspot for New Year's Eve is New York City and Times Square to watch the ball drop. So I thought it would be extremely appropriate to have Cara Castronuova with us. She's an activist. She's a championship boxer, and she's a media personality. And we met at one of these New York protests over the summer, and then actually met in person over in D.C. after promoting another one of her anti-lockdown events. And I know, Cara, at least for me, this certainly doesn't feel like New Year's Eve, does it? I lost your audio. Your audio.
Could you hear me better now?
Yeah, you're good right now. Yeah, your audio's back on.
Do we have to do the whole thing again?
No, we're live. We're live.
Okay,
Just
sorry.
do it.
It's this microphone. I had to press the on button. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it doesn't feel like New Year's Eve for a number of reasons. I am going to a friend's house tonight, but with the whole COVID, everything, the hysteria, a friend of a friend of a friend of mine had tested positive for COVID. She didn't have any symptoms, but since she works at a hospital, she gets tested regularly. So like this whole chain of dominoes effect where everybody's like thinking they have COVID now in like my circle of people, and nobody has it. Everybody got tested except me, because I really don't believe in getting tested unless you have symptoms and you're really sick. But the good part is everybody's getting together tonight, but it almost got canceled because like a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend had COVID and everybody got scared.
That is the nuttiest thing. And I have a buddy who I went to high school with who's out in Chester, New York. He is not sick. Somebody he was working with tested positive, so they made him take a mandatory test. His wife tested negative. He tested positive. He got a sheriff's department visit. They told him they were going to be checking in on him every single day and ensuring he's quarantining. They threatened him with up to a year in jail if he dares to leave his home. And meanwhile, Cara, and by the way, you can find everything Cara Castronuova at Cara Castronuova on Twitter or over at her website. Meanwhile, let's see, I've got so much stuff over here. I want to bring up the CDC and what their numbers for the flu are this year. Well, no, that's even worse. That's the mandatory vaccination. Here it is right here. So if you believe, these authoritative figures that have been so honest with us throughout these whole thing, you scroll down and we'll see if they have week 52 in there, but I think it was week 51 when I was looking at it with my audience the other day. What's your guess on the total number of influenza cases in week 51 of the entire country?
I was thinking about that lately because I haven't heard anything about anybody getting the flu this year. I haven't actually met a single person that said they had the flu, so I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. How many people had the flu this year?
Well, I won't say for the year because, again, I was going by a week-by-week basis, and it looks like they upped the number a little bit. Number of that's jurisdictions. When we did it, and I'm looking for the exact one because I don't want to be misspoken here. When we did it live earlier in the week, it was 27 cases in the entire country for the week of last week, basically the one ending in December 19th. They had a total of 27 cases of the flu. They're no longer testing people for it. Right. We can't seem to get the full death rate numbers anymore. And, you were talking about you won't test unless you're sick. Novel idea.
Right.
In Iowa, they say we have the number one rate of infection, because it's at like 40-something%. That's because we only test sick people.
Right.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It could set up a whole really negative chain because what happened was, since we had a friend of a friend of a friend that tested, then it literally almost destroyed a lot of people's New Year's Eve. My brother was cooking for his in-laws, and I don't think some of them are going there now because of it. I almost, wasn't able to go out tonight. I felt like I should, tell people because I don't want them to think that I was being dishonest about tomorrow I was going somewhere. So it's like kind of like almost canceled out a lot of different, and it's had effects on people all around. Like my one little case of my friend being here that was exposed to someone I told a few people, and around the country these people live, are can't sort of semi-canceling their get-togethers just because they were around me who knew somebody who knew somebody.
And that is insane. That is
Right.
absolutely insane. And at the same time, they're very comfortable going to a Home Depot or a Walmart or all these
Right.
places. They're around anonymous people, but because they don't have that scarlet letter of COVID, and by the way, it is 27. Okay, so
That's
they
crazy.
said
Yeah.
they tested 21,456 people and they only got 27 positives. And remember, the WHO, I wonder if this video is still up, yeah, has said that COVID is completely gone, 98+% across the entire world for the first time in history. This is their officials.
They said that what's gone? The flu or COVID?
The flu. The flu is just totally
Yeah,
gone.
that's just weird. I mean, it makes you wonder if I'm not a scientist, but is the flu COVID? I don't know,
Well, they're saying influenza A and B, so that's what you're getting for
Right.
For the flu test we just did. And last year, that was actually H1N1, or the swine flu was influenza B, and you had a multitude more cases. They're trying to say that through the social distancing and the masks, we've somehow eradicated the flu, but not COVID, where there are surges in cases, and constantly we're seeing that, the hospitals are full or filling, and we need to lock down. And especially in New York. And the very unironic thing about that with New York State is the fact that you now in New York City have a 41% surge in murders and killings.
Yeah.
And it's the way, the police commissioner said, I can't imagine a darker period. We highlighted a story, and remember, some of this was going on pre-COVID-19. This is when he had the catch and release bail, and there were these felons that were being released. You had somebody who was on a murder rap get released and then slash a woman in a second case in the
Right.
Bronx, and the judge let that person go as well. It's like they want to destroy New York by design in many ways, Cara.
It's really weird. It makes me sort of want to move to where you guys are, where you are.
You should call.
Iowa,
Listen,
right?
everybody thinks that I'm like when I say Iowa that I'm in some like cornfield or whatever. And believe me, I aspire to that.
That would be nice. I kind of think that's a good idea to move to a cornfield or just, be off the grid at this point.
I aspire to that. If I drove 20 minutes in several directions, sure, that's here. But I'm like in an urban city. I'm in the nice suburbs. My nieces who live with me, they got into programs. They're allowed to be around other kids without masks. They're doing
Really?
gymnastics. Yes, that's why I moved them here.
Yeah, no, it's not like that in New York. New York has gone crazy. There's not a person I know in New York who isn't contemplating leaving. Everyone's like, oh, I think everyone's like contemplating these different states, whether it be Florida or somewhere in the Midwest off the grid. But it's like the talk of the town right now. How do we get out of New York?
Well, again, they've lost so many people so far that they may actually lose a House seat in Congress because the population is declining that rapidly. Now, I saw a tweet of yours a couple days ago to kind of get into these lockdowns and this authoritarianism, where they're now starting to prep the public again for these mandatory vaccinations. First they tried to sell us on herd immunity was going to be 70, maybe 75, 80%. Now Fauci has moved the goalpost yet again to 90+%. And although, this was the story on Christmas, and I know that you put the woman in the picture on blast here, New York
Yeah.
ponders. Oh, your microphone went down quite a bit.
Oh, could you hear me now?
Yeah. You just got to get in on it. So they say this now, but they put it on paper over the summer. At these June rallies, the New York State Bar Association had already said they wanted mandatory vaccinations. They not only suggested it for New York, but said, hey, we want this for the whole country because, the Constitution has failed us. And in the case of the 14th Amendment, we have the right to protect the public. Well, now on paper, and this is in Assembly, and anyone can check this out, this is Assembly Bill A416, they've decided that, hey, we're not satisfied with that. We want to take it even further, and I'll put this up for people to read because it's just so unbelievable they put it on paper. The removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to public health. Other orders. The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease. So now we're not just talking about COVID. He's already made all these authoritarian orders. These are detention centers in New York State. You don't even have to be a case. You can simply be a contact or what they call as a carrier, which would be somebody who is asymptomatic. They go even further on this, and they say people that may be exposed to radiation for some reason. May that be, something happened in one of the nuclear plants, maybe, or maybe an attack, etc. But just the stark contrast to what that says about our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and due process, that you can now just be pointed out and possibly detained, and that's on paper and in assembly, should scare everybody in that state. No. No.
Could you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that is a bill in New York right now. You know, the scariest part is the A99 bill. His name is N. Nick. First name is Noah Nick Perry, and he's a Brooklyn assemblyman. He wrote it. He proposed it to the New York State Assembly, and this is the weird thing, right before COVID, like the whole COVID hysteria. So it was last January that bill was actually written, and now it's being reviewed right now, I guess in the next assembly in January. It's the scariest thing ever. Like, this is a real bill in New York. You could go on the New York Assembly website, basically saying it's really what it's saying is they could come to your home, take you, and put you in a detention center for however long they see fit under Governor Cuomo or the Department of Health's orders. This could be anything. I feel like it's purposefully left vague. If it's not COVID, it'll be something else. If they don't disagree with something that your group is doing, they could lock you up because it says in there, any group or person that is looked at like they're a threat to the community health can be detained and put in some sort of quarantine or some sort of facility. So it sounds like something out of a dystopic novel or movie. I just can't believe it's a real bill. When I tell people about it, they think I'm making it up. They think it's like a conspiracy theory, but it's right there on the New York Assembly website. It's under review right now by a very real assemblyman who's in Brooklyn, about 20 miles away from me, right now, who I can't believe his nerve in writing this bill. I mean, who's going to back this? I don't know. Would the New York State Assembly back it? There's a possibility because sadly there's a big majority of Democrats, and it seems like they usually vote together on stuff like this.
Not only vote together, but the bills that they've already passed on other mandatory vaccinations aside from COVID, along with this COVID vaccine, are nightmarish for any parent. Another reason that I wanted to leave. I'll be honest, again, before all this started, I was thinking about it because my sister and I had gotten religious exemptions for the girls. They had moved up from Virginia. They had been pestering, and then it was a long-fought battle. We won. Cuomo took that away the previous year. They started to have these vaccinations, which I was very against. And then, when it gets to the level where you have something that, again, the WHO, if you want to go with a low estimate, has a 99.4 plus percent survival rate. Obviously, this is not the epidemic that they tried to introduce to us in the beginning. And if they will take these authoritarian measures now on this communicable disease, it seems like anything is on the table. And that's why it is so directly vague, because it's all about selective enforcement. It's for us, not them.
And the scary thing is, it's just so arbitrary. It doesn't really say anything concrete. So, you know how it was just last year with the protests, where certain protests were acceptable and certain protests were not acceptable, where Cuomo actually went on record, I believe, saying, oh, the Reopen New York or protests are, they could spread COVID. But if it was another protest like a George Floyd or Black Lives Matter, that's fine. They're exempt. They don't really spread COVID. All protests should be legal. It's a First Amendment right, but it's not fair that we were singled out. So I feel like this is just a way to use against groups like my groups or groups that the government at the time doesn't agree with, and say, oh, this group is spreading COVID. They're or any other quote unquote communicable disease. They're gathering indoors, or they're not standing 6 feet away. This is reason for us to detain this entire group. So it could be used as a political weapon, and I feel like that's what it was written for, really.
Well, absolutely. And just the idea, again, that there's this huge danger to be around people that aren't masked. Around the country, things are happening. Again, guys, this was me this weekend. Normal bar, music, people, no masks, no social distancing, nothing. They had 10,000 to 15,000 people a week and a half ago at the Canelo Alvarez boxing match.
Wow.
In the Alamo Dome. No one said a word, okay? You and I were amongst tens of thousands of people. We had no idea who they were out in the streets of D.C. There are no outbreaks. I mean, this is a phenomenon like no other to me. And the other thing is that there are some local officials around the country, again, getting bad press, if any press, that are taking it upon themselves and using treatments that work. So I've had Dr. Richard Bartlett on the program. He's the Texas doctor that was treating people with budesonide. And now you do have Javier Joven, who is now the Odessa mayor and went to the city hall. He wants to reassess the approach, and he's putting Bartlett, who's had tremendous success with this treatment, getting people off ventilators, okay?
Right.
He's putting him in charge of the health department there. He's putting him in charge of COVID there. That's why your local officials are so important. And that's why the media is your enemy when just yesterday they began attacking Hogan again. You know, this guy, again, he's a person of color. You'd think that he would be, a darling of people that preach diversity, right, Cara? Somebody who's been able to get into politics, become the mayor, actually help people as Dr. Bartlett has. No.
Right. It's just when it suits their agenda is that embrace. It's very sad. They're really targeting the minority communities when it comes to this vaccine, all their messaging and all their propaganda on TV. It's like, oh, first person in New York to get the vaccine, I believe, was an African-American nurse at a hospital here, and they really painted her to be a hero, which, I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but the messaging that they're just trying to gain the trust of the minority communities and really take advantage of them, I feel, because there's already a lot of distrust. A lot of the minority communities don't really trust the government when it comes to medicine and when it comes to stuff like this because they've screwed them so many times. So it's understandably so. So now they're really using these propaganda. It's very scary. It's like something out of like I've said before, out of a movie where they're just trying to convince everybody that this vaccine is safe when how could they possibly know that it's been around for such a short amount of time?
No, absolutely. Again, I agree with you there. And I think that although, they're masking it in race and saying, oh, the Latino community in Santa Clara is so big, we're going to do it. What they're really doing is this class warfare based in identity politics. So they're sitting there white knighting, saying we're going to help these communities of Latinos and African Americans. But as you said, they're some of the most skeptical, and they're some of the people with the least amount of resources. And then when you see this in Santa Clara County, where they're going door-to-door testing people, this is several weeks ago now, getting them ready for the vaccine, only 55% are actually Latino. So What does that mean? That means, we're going to not knock on 45% of the doors? No, we're going to knock on every single door. And we're going to target the poor white people, the poor black people, the poor Asian people, the poor Hispanic people, everybody that we can, so that we can push this. And if they want to push back, again, they don't have the same kind of resources, right? And then there's the peer pressure of the community. And then especially with someone like, Cuomo, who's basically telling you, the state's not going back to normal. And there's no way back until we hit these markers of him and Fauci. He's doing press conferences with Anthony Fauci joking about.
Sicko. He's so sick. Both of them are so sick. I can't stand either one of them.
I mean, go ahead.
I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if it passed because obviously I did not watch it, nor did I want to attend Cuomo's virtual birthday party where he had like all these mega stars attending. I mean, he really has the deep state, I'd rather say, has him in the pocket along with Hollywood, where he has celebrities at his virtual birthday party. He's so egotistical and he's so maniacal. I think, like we're going next week to try to see that the election, I do believe there was election fraud. I believe that with Trump, and I do hope he remains president. If Biden gets in, I have a feeling he's going to try to pull Cuomo for something, and I feel bad for the whole country if they get exposed to him because we've been suffering in New York. But it's almost like I kind of want him the hell out of here. He's just such an egomaniac, and the fact that, like you said, he's hanging out with Fauci now. I mean, it's just. Both of them are disgusting.
Joking around about how they're the De Niro and Pacino team, like basically saying we're actor gangsters.
I'm allowed to say this because I'm half Italian. They're an embarrassment to Italians, and I really mean that. And a lot of people agree with me. They really are an embarrassment to Italian people. So they're traitors.
Yeah. Also half Italian. Also agree with you 100% on that one. Yeah. Exactly. Well, the only thing that I would get is that he plays into the stereotypical gangster role. But these are the high-level gangsters. This isn't the Italian mafia that you saw on television and the Goodfellas stuff. No, this is the real deal. And as far as possibly tapping him for a Biden administration, twice now it has made headlines that he could possibly be the attorney general.
Yeah, and that's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And we've talked about it a little bit. I've been no fan of Bill Barr by any means. But boy, does Cuomo scare me even more. I mean,
everybody, believe me.
It should be extremely frightening. So, Cara,
and then he's going to try to run for president. If you know what I mean? It's just he's just climbing and climbing and climbing. He's such a he's just such a part of the problem. That's going to be even scarier. We just have to somehow find a way to get rid of this guy. That's why I've been doing so many protests. But like I said, he has the news media behind him. His brother's, Chris Cuomo of CNN. His father was a big politician here in New York. So it's kind of like a crime family at this point, in my opinion. He was married to a Kennedy.
Oh, it's a total crime family. I mean, look what he did to that cop just dating his daughter. I'm sure you saw that side story, right? I mean, he literally sent him up to the Canadian border up by Plattsburgh. You couldn't get any further away. Like, if that's not gangster activity.
I know. That's so gangster. Yeah. So whatever.
I know. Again, but like you said, there's going to be a lot of people out in D.C. Why don't you tell people about what you're planning on doing in D.C., when you're going to get there? I've heard there's going to be events on both the 5th and the 6th. I'm going to try to get there the evening of the 4th at the latest. We'll see. I'm sure you're flying. No, you don't have to fly. You're like 5 hours on a drive, right?
Yeah, I'm going to, 4.5 hours. I'm driving down with a couple friends, again, with this whole rumor going around that a friend of a friend of a friend has COVID now. One of those people might not be coming. Whatever. But we're driving down for sure. I've been really looking forward to it. The minute Trump announced be there on the 6th, I was like, I'm going to be there. We were going to try to get down there for the 5th because my friend knows of some events that are going on. I don't know. She really is in tune with the alternate media. So there's a lot of stuff going on that she's been watching. So we want to make it down there for that. And a lot of people are saying, the 6th, it's pushing it. Like, I guess Congress is meeting on the 6th. So let's be down there the day before. And also make sure we don't get locked out of the city, because the crazy thing is they're closing hotels down. The Harrington, where I stayed last time, which is, I guess it's a place where a lot of the Proud Boys traditionally stay. I happen to have stayed there the last time I went down. And I guess they think it's a hangout for Trump supporters. So they canceled all of the rooms. Nobody's staying at the Harrington for this rally, which is weird.
Well, did you hear what Antifa threatened to do? I'll tell you why they did it.
Okay.
Because Antifa threatened to go into the hotels this week and just release bed bugs everywhere.
Yeah, that's disgusting and horrible. I'm sure they did threaten that because they're sick. But
well, I'll just say this: what a better opportunity to do it. All you have to do is get a couple of guests that and then everybody's masked up. You just have a couple of people come into. You don't even have to be a checked-in guest. Right?
Yeah. I walked into there pretty easily now that you say that. Yeah. I guess I myself made 2 reservations just in case at 2 different hotels, just in case one of the hotels would cancel, because now with COVID, you're allowed to cancel up to 24 hours in advance. So I made reservations at 2 hotels. I know that sounds messed up, but I did.
Oh, you're terrible, Cara. That you evil person.
I had no choice because I'm afraid one of them is going to cancel. There's a rumor going around they're going to cancel. And there's, other rumors going around they might close off some of the entrances into the city. So I want to be there beforehand, within walking distance of the protests and walking distance of where everybody's meeting up, at least a day or 2 in advance. I'm a little bit of a diehard like that. I have work to do, but I'll just bring my computer. I just want to make sure that I'm there and I don't get locked out of the city, because they could easily shut off close off exits in the parkways, whatever they want to do. It seems like they really don't want to make this protest happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think that it's going to be an even stricter lockdown than what we saw before. And even last time it was so difficult. I know that you were a little closer to everything than I was, but it was tough for us to get back to our hotel every night.
It's going to be tougher now because apparently they are closing down almost every restaurant. You only could order takeout. You can't even eat outside. It's going to be like, kind of like camping, I guess. Except, I don't know. They're making it more. DC has a stricter shutdown right now than when we were there a few weeks ago.
Well,
so there's going to be even less stuff open.
Yeah, and I was going to say, what I really noticed while I was there was how many of the restaurants that were even open, forget about a quarter capacity or half capacity, they were lucky to have a couple tables. Like some of these really nice, you'd take somebody out on a date, or you would go with your friends to dinner on a weekend, or, the nice bar. You're talking about if you had 3-4 customers, that was jam-packed. And I'm just like, how are these places staying in business? No idea.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was down there, right? You were there. You took a lot of video. Was that I feel like people are going to become more adapted to the cold weather. Like we're going to start to maybe grow thicker skin or something, because we were all hanging out. It was kind of like reminded me some parts like a tailgate party. Everybody's hanging out outside drinking in the freezing cold weather like it's a summer night. It was pretty crazy. Everybody just decided to congregate outside and drink and try to make the most of it. So I feel like if this continues on like this, we're all going to start to develop this I don't know, adapt to this cold weather better. Like the next generation will be able to like hang out outside all the time. I don't know. It's just a thought I had.
I'm
Because a
praying that
year
that
ago,
doesn't
I never
happen.
thought I would be standing outside, hanging out for hours on end in the freezing below zero cold, with hats on, like 5 pairs of socks, like mittens, and just hanging out. And like, oh my God, this is so great because you're actually around people. Like we were hanging out with people, so it was so much fun. I'd rather be outside in the freezing cold around people than inside the hotel by myself.
No,
So it
100%.
was interesting.
That was one of the best things about it is that, you were, approaching people that were generally strangers, no mask on, no
Right.
worries of someone approaching you and being like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? Instead, it'd be more like, hey, you want a beer? Or, hey, you want to hit
Right.
my
Yeah,
pen?
everybody
Or,
was so friendly.
yeah.
And it's funny because and I actually have the footage and I left it on my other phone at my friend's house, but um you saw like there was a big Proud Boy presence there. They were wearing uniforms, and then I was happened to be standing there outside Harry's or the Harrington when somebody, I don't know if they were a member of Antifa, but it was a disruptor came in and stabbed somebody. Um, so I was standing right there. It just happened like everybody was having a good time. Everybody was standing around drinking, I guess, dancing. They had like boom boxes on the street like back in the day. And then all of a sudden a guy ran through the crowd and he stabbed 2 people. And what I found when I keep running the image through my head that was so interesting was that, okay, he ran through the crowd, he stabbed 2 people, he got jumped by the crowd. Mostly regular people, not Proud Boys, jumped him like ladies hitting him with their bags and stuff. And he was on the ground kind of crumpled up in a ball, but he wasn't really hurt because he walked off to the ambulance. Whereas I don't think if it was the other way around, that person would even be, able to walk, let alone if they'd be alive. But I said to a Proud Boy, I was like, wow, because they weren't stomping his head, nothing like that. And he said, we have strict orders from the top that once a guy is down and hurt, we don't stomp him and we don't keep beating him up. So that's like coming. So I thought that was interesting. And I thought it was noteworthy that they had these orders that if somebody, even if they're being attacked, if somebody is already hurt and on the ground, they had these orders that nobody stomps him, just let him, that was pretty cool because I don't believe in kicking people when they're down. And if somebody's hurt, you don't kick their face into the ground and pummel them. And these people have families and they have lives. So I guess they don't want to go to jail either. But I thought that was really pretty cool thing.
Well, again, the media tried to focus on that one incident, right? The violence during D.C.
Right.
and highlight that stabbing. But that same evening after that, after Jones came out and gave that impromptu speech and the Proud Boys went marching, I was live streaming. I wanted to hang out, but everybody was going. That's what I was there for. So, I put down my beer and I started live streaming. And at one point, as you said, a lot of these streets were cordoned off. So, somebody who was completely lost, they looked like tourists. They drove into the crowd of the Proud Boys. You probably several hundred, maybe 1,000. They didn't have their headlights on. Instead of people going wild or destroying their car or stomping on, instead they were lightly tapped on the car. The people looked worried until the guys were like, "Hey, your lights are off, or you need to get your lights on." And then as soon as they put their lights on, they dispersed. They had the whole crowd make a wave. They drove up to the next checkpoint where the police were, and they got on the highway. And
yeah, it's the Proud Boys aren't what I know. I spoke to you. You spoke to him that night, Enrico Tario.
Yep.
I know you interviewed him for a second. He's Afro-Cuban and he's I don't he's not racist, but they've been painted in such a way that it's hard to resist, I guess, if you're somebody in Antifa to want to fight. Like they come looking for these fights and I don't know, it's like they're looking for fights with the wrong people because the Proud Boys are really a bunch of guys who like to get together and drink, and they do this security at these rallies, but they're not really looking for trouble. So I don't know. It's interesting when you see it firsthand. You kind of feel the energy, like when you're there in the crowd, like you felt it. Like these guys aren't looking for trouble. They're not looking to beat up people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting what the media does. Like the media, I don't know if you watch like superhero movies. I used to when I was younger. It's like Batman versus the Joker. Like they've created these characters, like the Proud Boys, Antifa, like the right, the left. They're like these crazy entities that they've created, and I'm like, wow, how much of it is the truth and how much of it isn't? And it's like you have to be on the right or you have to be on the left. You're with the Proud Boys or you're with Antifa, and it's like it's kind of getting ridiculous. It's like it's distracting everybody when we need to be focusing on, I think, getting together and fighting what the real enemy is, and that's the government at this point, and the deep state and this crazy election fraud and these mandatory vaccines and these shutdowns and them destroying businesses. Like, this is the real enemy, and they're distracting us into thinking like both sides are these crazy racists, when what we should be focusing on is actually maybe some of us getting together and fighting the real problem.
Yeah, because it's, again, it's, they try to make it about race. It's really classism. It's class warfare. And they've already eviscerated the middle class. Forget about the upper middle class. That's been gone a long time ago. They've continually tried to put us into more and more debt and make us more and more reliant on the government. And for some reason, a lot of people can't get out of these cartoon cutouts of left versus right, conservative versus liberal. And I think that when you get people in mob-like mentalities, in other words, groups of 4 or more, it's harder to breach that because, when I was on the streets of D.C. and I was looking for a 7-Eleven, for instance, I saw 2 of the guys from Antifa sitting on a park bench, but it's only 2 of them. They're having a cigarette. Right. It's easy to approach those guys. Hey, guys, where's the...
Right, then... Right.
Yeah, and they're friendly. They're human beings. You can have a talk with them, but get them with other people that are dressed in the same uniform, chanting the same thing, and there just seems to be this mental switch that turns off, and then all of a sudden you get into this tribal behavior when, like you said, if we want to get into tribal behavior, it really is all of us against a very small number of them.
And you look at, like, what that crazy bill, like, I'm like, why isn't, like, if I was on the left right now, if I was if I was in Black Lives Matter, I would be saying, why the hell is the government spending all this money on giving gender programs to Pakistan, weapons to Egypt, all these other crazy foreign aid, when they could be investing in Black communities or minority communities or women's programs in the United States, except they're giving billions and billions and billions of dollars away to the other countries. Like, that is an issue that, everybody should be asking that question and fighting against the government. You're spending $1 trillion on minus the the little amount they give us on foreign aid. What does that have to do with COVID relief? So I would be asking those questions. And again, it's a distraction. They passed this bill. They tell us they're going to give us a little bit of money. We don't question it, and it got passed. So it's sad, and it's I don't know. It's frustrating.
Anybody that would sell out for $600, $2,000, anything, $10,000 to me, what are you thinking? Listen,
right. The media is so pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, Trump is holding back the $600. People aren't going to get there. I'm like, shut the fuck. Like, they're so this ridiculousness could pass. I can't. It's so depressing. I think that people are opening their eyes, though. And Trump, you could thank him for that. I'm sorry. In terms of this bill, no president ever got on a press conference and called out all the crazy things that are in a bill and why he's against it. It really wasn't shown that much in the media, but he did do that. And whether you like him or not, a lot of people I know that don't like him are like, okay, he's really right. And I think he brought that to a lot of people's attention. Like, the government has been wasting our money, because it's everybody's tax dollars, on insane programs in other countries when they could be putting back into the communities here. And that should be something that people should be fighting for.
I 100% agree. No, I'm with you. Listen, I've been preaching about this stuff for years. I think these entanglements are unnecessary. I think at the end of the day, we're past nationalism. In other words, the powers that shouldn't be, the predator class. This isn't about a Cold War with China. This isn't about, us versus terrorists. This is about a takeover globally. And the people at the top in our government are here to make us more and more subservient. And this is a global phenomenon right now. And guys like Cuomo know it, and they're rolling over. And guys like Biden, when they know who they are and where they are, they know it too. It's rare. I mean, it's rare Biden knows who he is and where he is at this point. But he knows he's a placeholder. I mean, he called Kamala Harris President-elect Harris again this week, Cara.
Did he really? I mean, I've iced out Biden. I've iced out the mainstream media. Anything that reports on anything Biden has to say, I simply don't watch. It's banned in my house. My aunt lives here. I feel so bad. My aunt lives here, and she watches the news all day long. Therefore, she's terrified all day long. And she's like 90 years old and in a wheelchair. Whenever something comes on, I'm like, I go nuts. And she's like, you know what I mean? Because I just can't listen to propaganda in my own house when I'm like eating cereal. I don't need to listen to, propaganda. It's very frustrating. I already see enough of it when I leave the house. So it's just banned from my house. Like, nobody's allowed to watch the news at my house.
No, again, when I was living in New York, it was really tough because especially when they started going with in upstate New York, wearing your mask outside. And that was like almost the breaking point for me.
Right. No, that was for me too. I won't do it. And also, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you know, but that they're trying to make the mandatory vaccine here. And you know what's interesting? Not to go off topic, but the last time I was on your show, I was talking about the rally in Brooklyn that I was doing, the one in Grand Army Plaza. And I met your nice friend Joe. He's really cool with the cowboy hat. But he came to the rally. He's like been a friend ever since. So that's like a good thing that came out of this. Plus, you know, a lot of people watch you. So you're doing a good job. We had so much disruption there at this rally. I don't know what the heck. Now everybody associates me with disruption. So I get invites from these other organizers to come to their rallies, and they're like, "You're not going to be bringing your friends, are you?" I'm like, "They're not my friends. They're just like, they think I come with trouble now, you know, because we had a lot of Antifa. Someone got a bottle of urine thrown at them. Someone threw a bottle of urine at a Navy SEAL. It was horrible. We had all these protesters there acting insane. And of course, that's the only thing that got any play on YouTube was all the disruption. Nobody, the video of the actual rally and the peaceful protest, which were the doctors, the rabbis, the pastors talking about medicine and the Constitution, was removed for violating the community. But all the violent footage of the crowd fighting people and the cops getting involved was kept up. But it's funny because after a couple of these protesters stood around and listened for a little while, they were like, wait a second, maybe not everybody here is racist. And one of them actually apologized, and he's now like my friend. So I made friends with a lot of the, I don't know if you'd say Black Lives Matter, just people who are, some of them are in Black Lives Matter. I don't know if they're in Antifa. I don't think they would tell me that, but it's like we've almost formed this like kind of like weird, nobody wants to get this mandatory vaccine. And in New York, a bill is was written by Linda B. Rosenthal. Google her. She looks like Bill Gates with the wig on. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And she wrote a bill to make the vaccine mandatory, and they're really against that. I guess most people are. So I'm like, really, that's interesting. A lot of people are on the left are against this. The counter protesters are against this. So yeah, I just basically have kind of formed somewhat of an alliance with them to fight this vaccine issue in the very least. I'm like, if we come together on one thing, we don't have to discuss politics. Fine, we might have voted for different people. You know, let's not talk about anything that doesn't have to do with the vaccine, but we're going to try to fight the vaccine being made mandatory here in New York. So I think that's pretty cool. Like that two groups like Black Lives Matter and Donald Trump supporters could come together for an actual cause. It must be really important for us to come together, you know?
No, it is a very important cause, and it's one people need to get behind. And it's why, you know, I've kind of ramped it up, at least on the activism and going to these things. Because again, like I told you last time, it doesn't matter to me who gets in. Obviously, right. I would prefer Trump. Obviously, I think there's major corruption going on in our voting systems. But I think that if we don't push back, you know, you've seen, you know, all these people that invested all that hopium in them, man, thinking everything was going to be okay. And I'm just like, no, it's not how it works. We got to be our own heroes, Cara. We got to step up to the plate. And I know you know that as, you know, a champion boxer. You have to face adversity. You have to get into that mindset where I am no longer going to be the victim, and I am now going to fight back.
Right. And take risks, too, because I think it's risky. Even doing this, like, kind of like, what's the word when two groups come together? I'm looking for the word.
Alliance?
Alliance, or like, I don't know what the right word is, but like with Black Lives Matter.
Crossover?
I've had a lot of people. What was it?
Crossover?
Yeah, crossover, like just working together, like on an issue, like two unlikely groups, or who the media have pit against each other, rather, let's say, who really believe in a lot of this, you know, have a lot, who really just want the best for, you know, for whatever, whichever way they go about it. You know, so I'm not judging anyone or anything like that, but it's risky because people have said, are you sure, you know, you might lose a lot of your support on the right if you actually work with people on the left? And I'm like, I don't care. That's the dumbest thing. You know, for me, I don't care. That's not why I do it. And I'm sure that they, you know, their organizers like, oh, you work with those MAGA people and like, you're going to lose a lot of support on the left. For something as important as like a mandatory vaccine where they're going to force inject you, I don't think that any of that really counts anymore. You know, and then that's just a precedent. That's just the start of it. If they really are able to pass a mandatory COVID vaccine in New York, they're going to attempt to pass it and spread it across the country. They're going to next pass another mandatory vaccine for whatever they want. You're going to lose more and more medical freedom and more control of your own body and health. So this is like, has to be nipped in the butt, this crazy bill that Linda Rosenthal wrote, and they're going to be voting on it sometime soon because they're meeting again. So we've been really trying to figure out a way how to get together and combine forces and fight this insane mandatory vaccination. You know, it's so evil.
We'll
And I know New
definitely-
York
yeah.
has to probably be the only state that, unless you do, I don't know, do you have an assembly person that's insane and evil enough to actually propose something like this to the assembly over there in where you're living?
No. I'll tell you right
Yeah.
now, the only, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some insanity here, but I've had so many people contact me and so many people push back. And again, they only tried that restaurant business for about 3-4 weeks before people were saying they're done. You know, my girls upstairs, they ended the year with them not being able, they were in hybrid school, right? So they tried to take that away. That's back. They go back to school in like, I think 2 days from now, 3 days, either the 2nd or the 3rd. So they're going back to school. I don't know what's going to happen after January 21st, but like I said, I think that no matter what, we're going to have to take it to the local halls of government. I think that, you know, we have to not acquiesce anymore. We have to say no restrictions, no social distancing, no mandatory vaccinations, no shutdowns, no hand sanitizer, no masks. Let's focus on the real treatments that doctors are telling us work, not only in internet videos, but in the halls of government. You have Dr. Corey, who not only talked about the steroid treatments months and months and months ago, but in the beginning of December, talked about ivermectin. My good friends over at the Convo Couch, again, they're about as progressive and left as you can get. They got COVID a little over a month ago. They were sick for days. They took the ivermectin. They said it was like night and day right after. But I'm not a doctor. I can't talk about that. I can only talk about it in the context that it's out there. And this guy's almost in tears saying literally these words: if you take ivermectin, you will not get sick. He says it has 100% efficacy in stopping infection. The vaccine.
Is that a prescription? Because what is that? That's a
ivermectin is an anti-parasitic, and Dr. Corey, Korey, you type him in and you type in ivermectin, and I forget who the senator was that was heading the hearing, but it was a hearing on COVID-19, and he was directly talking about the fact that from the very beginning, they were trying to sell you on all these designer drugs, remdesivir, which now the WHO has backtracked on, and others. And then he said there wasn't one task force out there to check out repurposed drugs. And from the beginning, they told us not to use colloidal steroids. And he's like, we're using the steroids, they work. The repurposed drugs, they're working. And he breaks down ivermectin, and he talks about in Argentina, where they gave a group of 800 doctors the ivermectin. All 800 working in hospitals with COVID. All of them, none of them contracted it.
So it's a preventative then. So basically, could anybody get it, or is it a
pretty easy to get? It's about as cheap as hydroxychloroquine, et cetera. And then they ran this with a controlled study with the 400 doctors who did not take it. Over 200 of them did contract COVID. So
I'm sure they'll make it hard to get. I don't know. I haven't heard of it here in New York because it's almost like they want people to contract the virus.
Well,
that's my opinion.
You know, I mean, you watch my videos and you'll see how I feel about all of it. Cara, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you have a wonderful New Year's Eve. CaraCastronuova.com is where you can find out everything about her at Cara Castronova.
CaraCastronova.net.
Oh, sorry.
Follow me on Twitter, please. I never say that. I'm going to start saying that now because I'm going to start podcasting because you have inspired me. Really, no, I'm serious. You have. And I'm going to use Periscope and all that stuff. I'm not that tech savvy, but I do have a lot to say. So I am going to start do podcasting. So if you could follow me on Twitter and on other social media, that would be great.
All right. Kick one back at midnight for me, okay?
Yeah, I will.
All right. Sounds good.
Different time zone, but I'll be thinking of you.
All right. Sounds good. I forget. This is my first one not on the East Coast. Oh, no. All right.
And I'll see you next week. I'm excited.
Yeah, I will see you next week. All right, Cara. Thanks again.
All right,
Cara Castronova, everybody. She rocks. I really love talking to her. Again, that's somebody that's set goals in their life, made accomplishments, and now is fighting back against the system. And again, I love reaching out to people like that are more mainline conservative or people that are more mainline left or liberal, because we need to bring people together, and she's getting that. She's getting that. $5, $10, $15, it means the world to me. Big donors. I could not do it without you. Consider giving to the GoFundMe. Make sure that you're thumbing the video up, you're subscribed, you're joining the Burmese Brigade. Let's get it to 75,000, 100,000. We're going to go hard in the paint at DC, right? You know we're going to go hard in the paint. And, we try to keep it here on the platform where the most people can see it. And obviously, that is YouTube. All the documentary films are free right here, right now. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade, the Motion Picture. And Rockfin. We go live 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Maybe we're going to do one for the New Year's Day tomorrow. Maybe we are. I don't know. But make sure that you make the free account. If you do want to support me there, you get all the premium content of myself and many others, including Whitney Webb, The Convo Couch, Nico House, John Fitch, Ben Askren, and many others. So consider supporting me there as well. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on the flip side.